Good evening. The regular meeting for the Joint Land Use Board Thursday, September 2003 is called to order. I wish to announce that the open public meeting law, known as the Sunshine Law of 1975, has been complied with. The notice of this meeting was advertised at a reorganization meeting, at which time official newspapers were notified. Copies are placed on the bulletin boards. Please everyone rise for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this evening we have a member being sworn in, Mr. Jermaine Jackson.
Mr. Jackson, would you step forward, please? Okay, and raise your right hand and repeat after me. Okay. I, Jermaine Jackson, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of the office of the Land Use Board according to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations. Stop.
Okay, may we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Roach.
Here.
Councilwoman Hess.
Here.
Mr. Wells.
Here.
Mr. Vandergrift.
Here.
Ms. Joy Jackson.
Here.
Mr. Dawson.
Here.
Mr. Foley. Here. Mr. Jermaine Jackson.
Here.
Ms. DeDomenico here. Ms. Curtis. Here. Mr. Lankowski.
Here. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes of August 26, 2021. Can I have a motion? Second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Roach.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hess.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vandergrift.
Abstain.
Ms. Joy Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
Mr. Foley. Yes. Mr. Jermaine Jackson.
Abstain.
Mr. Lankowski.
Yes. Next is resolution JLUB 21-6. This is 5G games. This is for retail use only. Can I have a motion? Can I have a second?
Second.
Can I have a roll call?
Mayor Roach.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hess.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vandergrift.
Abstain.
Ms. Joy Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
Mr. Foley.
Yes.
Mr. Jermaine Jackson.
Abstain.
Mr. Lankowski.
Yes. Next on the agenda, we're going to switch around the application JLUB 21-6A. This is for Prodigy Games. This is for the parking variance, my understanding.
Yes.
They asked for a postponement date.
They, in case anyone is here for that application, they did ask for a postponement to the October meeting because their application was incomplete. So if you're here for the project game, that will be on for the October meeting.
You have to do a roll call.
Motion, do we have a motion to continue? Motion to continue. Roll call. Second.
Mayor Roach.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hess.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Vandergrift.
Yes.
Ms. Joy Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
Mr. Foley. Yes. Mr. Jermaine Jackson. Mr. Lankowski.
Yes. Okay. Next new business. Before we start this part, it's my understanding a lot of people are going to be here for this application. The way we usually do this is the applicant has his turn to give his application before we answer any questions. So the applicant will give his presentation.
upon which time the board will ask questions, and then we will open it to the public. At that time, we will answer anyone's questions or concerns. Okay?
Okay, next on the agenda is application JLUB 21-7, that's United Paving, that's Bangor Avenue, lot 257, lot 1. This is for a use variance. Take care.
You're walking around.
Could you step forward?
You're up, Bo. You live in Newark, okay.
Yeah. Also, the mayor and Councilwoman Hess will abstain from this procedure because they're all council. Okay, we'll bring it 8 after 6.
Good evening. I'm Pat McAndrew. I'm representing the applicant. My client has not shown up yet. Mike and I both spoke to him yesterday. He was to be here at 6. So I'm not sure why he's delayed or what's going on there. But
Contact with him? Is he on his way?
Mike has texted him. I called him. I don't know what's going on.
Do you want to see if that is mine?
I'm not sure what's going on, so I'm reluctant to say yes. I guess it's up to the board how you want to proceed, but we're not ready until he's here.
I mean, we're here and we should at least start the engineering testimony. And I think we need to hear testimony from the applicant in terms of his operation. But if we want to hear from the engineer first, and if we hopefully will get it.
Okay, then I'll see if we need to continue it at the end.
Okay.
We'll reverse the order.
Okay, one other thing I want to bring to your attention is that, can everybody hear me?
No.
The applicant is late on has not paid his third quarter taxes for this year. And the non-payment of taxes is actually a jurisdictional issue, and we can elect to either not hear this application tonight because the taxes haven't been paid, or the board can actually proceed and make the payment of taxes a condition of any kind of approval. In light of the procedural issues that we've had with this case, and it's the third time up, it's my recommendation to the board that we hear this application and make the payment of taxes a condition of any approval. So,
Yes, we'll take a vote on those conditions. Do I have a motion on that? Motion. Do I have a second? Nancy, roll call, please.
You second. You made a motion.
Greg second.
Mr. Ross.
Yes.
Mr. Vanderberg.
Yes.
Ms. Joy Jackson. Here. Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
Mr. Foley. Yes. Mr. Jermaine Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Lankowski.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. By way of introduction, I just want to make 2 points. First, this is an application that's split into 2 parts. We're asking tonight just for the use variance to allow what's proposed, and if that's approved, then the second part would be we would come back with a full site plan. So this is a bifurcated application. We're only focusing on the use and not the lighting and all the specifics that will come later. Second, I want to focus what we're actually asking for. It's not, there's been different views on this as to what it is. And what Mr. Williams is proposing is what I would call a contractor's yard. He is a paving contractor, but this will not be an asphalt plant or anything like that. He's basically gonna have vehicles there, some other equipment and materials, but he'll come in the morning and his crews, his trucks and vehicles will leave. And then later in the day, they come back. So it's basically out in the morning, back in the afternoon or late day. It's also seasonal because he's a paving contractor and he won't be operating year round. But it's not a production plant or anything like that. It's not an asphalt plant. I do want to make that clear to everybody because I'm not sure what they think we're
Okay, if I could just say something, you've made some representations about how your applicant is going to be operating. If he does not appear, you cannot rely on your statements, you cannot testify for the
Yeah.
applicant. If they don't come, any of those statements that you just made, we cannot consider.
Yeah, well, to some extent, I think Mike is familiar with the operations. And if Mr. Williams doesn't appear, I'll have to deal with it at the end of the case. Mike, can you give us the benefit of your...
First, I have to swear in that I have another issue that we talked about the tax, we did that. Could you raise your right hand, would you stand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the whole truth?
I do.
Okay, could you give your name and address for the record?
Michael Avila Engineering, 228 West Whitehorse Pike, Suite B, Berlin, New Jersey, 08009.
Mike, can you tell us the benefit of your background and experience first?
Sure.
Let's qualify it.
I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey and a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I have been practicing land use development for approximately 23 years. And I have appeared before various boards, and I have presented before this board, and recently with the WBL Woodland Departments, and have provided testimony with regard to planning and engineering, and have been accepted as such in other municipalities.
Your licenses for both planning and engineering are both current,
Yes,
and both are in New Jersey.
both are in New Jersey.
Okay, we'll accept your credentials. Please proceed.
Thank you. I wanted to provide some exhibits.
Do you have a, Mr. Hannon, how do you want to mark that A1?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any extras?
Just one more.
I'm going to put one at the table here. We'll follow them here, right there.
The next one here.
We need one up there.
Do you want more?
Yeah. Oh, you had that. So you can take that back to your seat if you'd like. Thank you.
And just for purposes of identification, could you tell us what this exhibit is comprised of?
Yes, the exhibits are three in nature. First one is an aerial photograph of the site and the surrounding vicinity. The second one is a survey of the property with topography. It also shows what is being proposed by the applicant, the building, its entrance, its parking areas, and points of access off of Derby Avenue. The third one is a architectural drawing of the frame cross-section of the proposed building. It is something that has been prepared. It's not to scale, and it's not signed, but it tries to give an indication of heights as well as the width on the pole barn that he's proposing to construct. Those are the three exhibits that I will use in reference this evening.
Right, what is, before you get to the site, what is your understanding of the proposed use?
I heard Ms. Gaskell indicate basically that the applicant has to come and provide, but absent his testimony, I will have to rely on our conversation in the past in order to explain some of the elements that are in the design. Absent that, if you don't accept what I'm saying, then what I'm going to say obviously will not be accepted by you in that case. So I just want to clarify, be clear with the board that some of it stems from my conversation with the client over the course of the year. My understanding is exactly as Pat described it. It's a seasonal contractor. He's going to come in and use the site for his business. He's going to come in off of Derby Avenue. He's going to work seasonally. He doesn't manufacture anything. Nothing is going to be manufactured. It's not an asphalt plant. It's not a milling plant. It's none of those things. It's basically a contractor's yard because he provides paving services in the various communities that we live in South Jersey. His goal is to be able to locate his facility here. It provides him the room that he needs, and I'll show that in our plan that we have as part of our exhibit. But in short, that's basically what he's trying to do.
Why is this site, can you describe the site and why does it work for this use?
Well, I want to get into a little bit of the site before I get into that, if you don't mind. The site is in the R1 zone, and that is the reason why we need a use variance. The R1 zone doesn't allow this specific use, but by no means does the R1 zone prohibit any non-residential uses. The board should be aware that in your ordinance, you're allowed to have daycares and churches here. That's what it stipulates. So in section 365-20, it's a single-family detached dwelling. But also, if you go further, you go into the other areas, it says public parks, government buildings, and public utility installations, which involve no storage yards, commercial office space, public and parochial schools. A school could go here. Daycare centers, private schools, and related uses which are not operated as a business. Churches, synagogues, parish houses, convents, and related uses, provided that the adequate provision is made for off-street parking as required, home occupation, and so forth. So, what I am trying to establish with the board is that even though it is in the R1 zone, the R1 zone does not prohibit non-residential uses. As a matter of fact, it does, as I read it to you straight out of the ordinance. And this is a non-residential use. But because it's not specifically that particular use is listed, that's why it's before this board seeking a use variance. So that is an important element because I believe that the planners and whoever put together the ordinance somehow understood that commercial or non-residential and residential uses can coexist. And the understanding is that they can coexist given the uses and the outlines and things. And we're saying, although this use isn't a specific use outlined here, we're trying to present to the board that it also can coexist, much like a parochial school that has activity every day with buses coming in, or a government building that can be put there, or a recreational park. The town cannot prohibit it. If somebody wanted to come in and put in a school or daycare, they can do that. Matter of fact, it's permitted. And what we're trying to say is this use, the United Paving Contractors Yard, is a use we believe can coexist because of its limited duration during the day, because of its time and hours of operation during the day, the fact that it's seasonal. Those are the kind of things that I believe is going to allow this facility to coexist. Obviously, we are here and others would have a different opinion, but I'm here of this opinion as a planner. Want to give a little background to the site.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, please.
Excuse me, please, sir. We did request that the applicant be allowed to present his application, and then at the public portion.
He's not the applicant. He is not the applicant.
Okay, he is representing the applicant, okay? He
I've
is-
never ever seen engineers or attorneys file an application before a planning or zoning board without the applicant present.
Again, if I could say, we're waiting for the applicant, he could put on his engineering testimony, and I made it clear to him that we want the applicant here, we want direct testimony from the applicant. I'm very confident that the applicant told the engineer some things, but that is not, he never said it under oath. We want the applicant here under oath to give direct testimony on how he's operating his business, and we're waiting for him.
Can there be a
So
vote without
let's
him
let
being
the
here?
engineer finish, and then we'll proceed.
But he is an engineer, he's supposed to be talking about nuts and bolts and measurements, okay? Not being clairvoyant, what is allowed in an R1 zone.
Well, you know, the alternative is to continue this for like the fourth time.
No.
So, I mean,
There's
I
a
would
full board,
rather
there's no
it's-
excuse.
I would rather.
I'm
it's
going to
lawyer.
ask you one more time, please.
All right, I'll
Please.
shut up.
Please.
Talk about it.
Okay, I'm sure our attorney would not let us proceed if there was anything that wasn't kosher with this proceeding, and I have seen this done before. So,
Where, what town was that, sir?
Mansfield Township.
Okay.
I was on the planning board for 7 years, and we had applicants that were late before too.
This is amazing.
Please proceed.
For the board's clarification, because of the application is a use variance application and requires testimony as a planner, that is my role there. Not as the engineer, but as a planner and land use, land development. So I also can play the role of the engineer, but that's not what's before the board today. But before the board today, and before the group of people that are gathered here, is a planning application. Why this is to be considered by the board. So that's why the R1 zone is relevant, because that plays into planning and zoning. That's why it is important to outline what uses are available, because that is planning and zoning. So I say that from the point of view because that is important. That should be considered. As far as the site is concerned, the site basically dead ends at Bangor. The site is, from what I've seen, because I've been to the site, has been stripped. And if you look at the aerial photograph, you can see that there's a quarry pit on the right side of our site. On the other side of what is called Derby Lane. It seems to me that from having been to the site, this site has been stripped. And if you look at the second exhibit that I'm showing you, and if you direct your attention to Bangor Avenue, which is on the right side of the page, you'll see that the elevation there is 101. And if you go to where the proposed stone parking area is going to be, that is elevation 85. There's a 16-foot drop between the top of Bangor Avenue and the bottom of the particular site at its lowest point. So when you look at this particular site, you see that at some point in time, from observation, you see that this has been a site that has been stripped, and it would be of no surprise given the activities that are happening basically on the right side of the property with the adjacent quarry pit. So this site has been left in a condition really that it's a bowl. There is water that would come into this particular site from its surroundings because of the topography, because of the excavation. The benefit in this particular site is that it is actually very permeable soils and it does infiltrate. But in order to develop this particular site, for the things that are listed even for a home, you'd have some engineering difficulties because of the grade differential. You're talking about a facility that wants to use it, that has trucks and work vehicles, that can manage and navigate such difference in elevations a lot easier than a school bus would, or any other type of vehicle. So those are the things why, when you look at this and you consider it, it's been sitting like this for a long time. When you say, why does a site like this sit like this for a long time? Most of the reasons is because it's either too financially expensive, it says it's not worth it, or the truth of the matter is there's a lot that has to go into it in order to make it possible, feasible, practical, usable. If anybody would have, they would have bought it by now. They would have put a house there by now. That is not the case. History would dictate that. It's not me. Look at it. It's been like this forever. As a matter of fact, there's two roads that haven't really been developed. One is Derby Lane, that is really a dirt road or gravel road. The other one is Burlington Avenue, which is a paper street. They've been left like that because there really is no viable use for the particular properties as a whole. And that is part of the planning. If anybody thinks it's useful, they wouldn't want it. I think he's put it up for sale. So when you look at the site and say, well, what is the maximum best use for this site? How do you render something that's useless useful? How do you take a particular property that is basically deemed economically utility, that's part of planning? How do you make it useful? How do you take something that's been contaminated like brownfield sites and make it useful? This is what they're trying to do, and this is what the applicant is trying to do, is say, what can we do with this particular site? What is the best and most economical use for this site? And we believe that his site, as the applicant, can be a useful site. Is it the only site? Can other things come in here to use it? Yes, but they haven't, not to my knowledge, not at all to the client. So we believe that there is a particular piece of property that more or less, in its given condition, has proven over decades that nobody really wants it like this. My client wants it like this. He says, I can deal with it. I have the vehicles, I don't need to worry about it. It's not, people aren't coming here, it's not a health facility, there's no retail. I don't have to worry about people or children or whatever coming to my site or contractors. We come in and we leave. So that's why it's particularly suitable for this particular site. And that's part of the testimony that I've been presenting. But I've got a little bit ahead of myself. But you look at the site, and that is really the condition of the site as it stands today. It ends at a dead-end street. It's bounded by two streets that are not developed for township standards. And it has basically a huge drop-off because it's been mined. And therefore, this property has been left as is. If you look at this aerial photograph, why is the rest of the community developed and not this? One would have to just make a practical assessment and say, it's like this because really, nobody wants to build here, given its hardship.
We don't want you.
No, that's not true. It was privately owned, the one that went up for sale, I passed away.
Mike, to put this in a different framework, you're basically saying it's particularly well suited because it's near gravel pit, it's undeveloped for decades, and the grade being in a bowl helps obscure the visibility of the contractor.
Correct, and that's part of the planning purposes. How can this use exist? Part of it is the fact that when you get into the positive criteria, one of these things that you see is that it won't be visible. If you look at, once again, if you look at the 30s that we presented, you see that it's got basically a ceiling height of approximately 18 feet, I believe. 18 feet. So if you set this at 85 and add 15 feet, you're at 103, which is just 2 feet above the road height. It's not something that's going to be seen necessarily in everything that's going on. It's going to be safe and hidden. Those are one of the reasons why we believe this site, for this particular use, most sites won't exist and won't be seen. He's okay with being anonymous in the neighborhood. So that's one of the benefits for it. The other is he's not coming off of Banger Avenue. He's coming off and wants to provide his entrance as shown on the exhibit from Derby Avenue. There's nobody coming in off of Banger Avenue. There is approximately 100 feet to his house, to his pole barn. And all that is wooded right now, and all that would serve as screening and buffers. So when you look at it, say, what are the positive criteria under the municipal land use law? One is basically that the site is particularly suited for this particular use, because it's low to the ground, because it can be hidden due to elevation differences, because there exists enough vegetation right now that he actually has 100 feet from the road of vegetation that can be screened from it. So those are positive things that allow this particular use to exist in a more of an anonymous condition. And the other thing is that you have a use that is basically in there in the morning and then in the afternoon. And it's trying to avoid the entrance. So if you look at the aerial photograph, if you go back to exhibit 1 in the aerial photograph, it would be his intention to come off Ashton, turn right onto Derby, and turn right into the site. So that is,
We don't want them big trucks up our road.
Everyone, could you please allow the applicant to speak, please? Well, everybody will be. Thank
as far as the negative criteria of an application, is it's a two-sided coin. You have to provide the positive criteria, we believe it's particularly suited, some of the things that I mentioned, but you also have to address the negative criteria. One of the things when you look at is, how is this particular site more or less detrimental to the surrounding community? Once again, it said, does it take away from these other uses that could be there? And the answer is no, because they actually could have been built, but haven't been built. So this particular use doesn't take away from someone being able to develop that consistent with permitted uses under the R1 zone. The other is this, does the site provide smoke, glare, noise, match like a manufacturing facility or some kind of a trash to steam plant that generates fumes? That's not the particular case here. His vehicle would come in and operate under normal conditions, very normal times, if you will. So it's no different than some of the uses that are there. You have the Lindenwold board building that's there. You have other vehicles that are coming. His are trucks. So when we talk about noise, how is this going to be noise? I believe that you have other bigger equipment on the quarry side that generates noise. I used to do a lot of quarry design for Uniman and for US Silica, and they would dredge the facilities. They would have barges that and they would operate all day long. So
What zone were they in?
What you have is no noise that is different than what the noise would be generated from the facility. They're not there for most of the day, so they're not having the noise. You operate during regular normal business hours, and they're not generating any kind of smoke, glare, or debris that would be detrimental to the community. So when you look at that, you say that in consideration of that, this is a use that basically is not taken away from the zone plan, because the zone plan allows non-residential uses. It's also, it's not something that would substantially impact or bring detriment to the neighbor and the character of the neighbor. So based on those assumptions, we believe that those are things that the board would consider when they review this application. And that would be my testimony.
Okay, first, we're going to entertain questions from the board, and then we'll go to the public. Does anybody from the board have questions on this app?
I have a question for the planner. Derby Avenue is a dirt road. And did you think of commercial vehicles traveling on a dirt road? And did you look into the sewer system and how shallow it may be with the weight of commercial vehicles traveling on it?
No, we have not looked at that element yet.
You were talking about intentional using Aston Avenue to drive up the dirt road.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You were saying your trucks were coming in on Aston Avenue.
Yes, they would take United States Avenue to Ashton Avenue, correct.
What's saying that everybody else is going to do the same thing? They're not going to come in from the United States and Ashton all the way around. I mean, you can add a lot of extra traffic in there for employees, the trucks or whatever. Who's saying that they're going to come down the dirt road?
Well, this is where I believe the applicant's testimony is. When you talk a lot of traffic, I think we need to clarify how many vehicles he's talking about.
The applicant is
So if you're talking about 30, 40 vehicles, if you're talking about 5 vehicles, those are the kind of things. And my understanding is it's not a lot of traffic, if you will. It's not like 30 or 40 trucks that you have. If you look at the plan, it's not set up for that. So his comment to me is my vehicles have to be on the road. If they're not on the road, they're not making any money. So I don't want to get into a qualifier of a lot of traffic, because that is subject to how many
But the
vehicles you
answer
have.
is this then?
I'm sorry?
How many vehicles, utility vehicles, are you talking about being parked in?
I'm going to leave that up to the applicant to testify how many vehicles.
I have a question. For what you're planning, how many utility vehicles will fit in this plan at max?
If I look at this layout, I have proposed truck parking of 50 by 40. We have 8 somewhere in and somewhere out, but that's what he has.
So the most someone could put in here is 8 trucks.
Yes, that is what we proposed that we have. And then we have other vehicles parking for his employees. We have a handicap area in concrete by the building. When you talk vehicles, I mean, this is why it'd be important for him. You're talking about putting some of it aren't even vehicles, the things that enclose like a hitch or whatever the case may be. They need a place to be parked. So I don't want to quantify a number and
Yeah, I understand. I just wanted to see.
But not every parking space you're going to put a vehicle. Some of it could be something that he pulls a low board because that's where he puts his vehicles that he pulls out of here. So he needs to put them somewhere, and these are stalls that we're proposing.
What about your hours of operation? The hours of operation.
Again, I'm going to defer to the applicant, but it would be from the morning, most of his jobs would be from 7 to 3:30, the job site is back to 4 o'clock.
I wait for the applicant to testify directly on that issue, if he
Yeah.
shows up. Okay, if I could, I'd like to ask a question. It seems like you're premising this use variance in terms of establishing the positive criteria is that the hardship, there's a hardship here that the property cannot be used for anything else, or somebody would have done that. Would that
Yes.
be fair, accurate? So how did you do some historical research on this property and whether it was ever up for sale or did you ever do any of that before you made that statement?
In talking to the applicant, that's the information that I received that it's been like that. So it's not something that I've done historical,
Okay.
but you can just tell from what's there how it's been used.
Okay, we're going to open to the public to cross-examine the applicant here. Could you please step to the microphone, state your name and address and your concern? Just so everybody knows, we probably do have more questions from the board, but the applicant is not here, it'll be just a waste of time. So-
Frank DeLuca, 817 Ashburn Avenue, I'm on the way from Warren, okay? First off, this is all hearsay information from the engineer, in all due respect, okay? But let's go back to the beginning, okay, where we waived the applicant not having the taxes paid prior to this week. Did they do that in Mantua?
We didn't waive it.
What'd you do?
What we said is if there's approval, he would have to pay the taxes before the resolution would be paid.
Why don't you scratch that out of the ordinance then, that you don't have to have the taxes paid before an application is filed?
Statutorily, you have the right to do that. And what I said is that if we were going to enforce that strictly, that would mean we'd have another hearing. We've already been out 3 nights.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that, that's
So
cool.
we said, with these folks that come out 3 nights, we're not
Yes.
going to do this again. And so that was my recommendation.
I'm missing my grandson's ball game. Anyhow,
We don't want you to miss another one.
sounds good. Yeah, I don't want to miss Halloween, but that's, But again, in all due respect, okay, I think his taxes are $2,400, okay? And he didn't pay his taxes, okay? I guess my first question to the engineer, he's gotten your fee yet?
Yes.
On that, is that?
Yes.
Okay, so you got your fee, but he didn't pay his taxes. Okay. All right. This is the trucks that he's got. You might want to take a look at that. I don't know that much about trucks, but that looks pretty darn heavy to me. Okay? I don't know what the tonnage is or whatever. Okay?
Gross vehicle,
Can
80,000.
I interrupt just for a second because I am sorry for my omission. I'd like to give your name and I'd like to swear you in.
Oh, okay, sure.
Okay, I'm sorry, that was my oversight.
Okay, not the way you. Frank DeLuca, 817 Ashbourne Avenue, Lindenwold, New Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Blue.
Okay.
Okay, raise your right hand. You swear or affirm that the testimony you give tonight will be the whole truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
So help me God.
With all due respect, I've never ever seen, and I've been around, watched a couple planning board meetings, and actually I attended a week at Princeton on planning, okay? And I never ever saw where the applicant wasn't there, okay? Because anything that you can testify to doesn't have anything to do with the price of apples, okay? Unless the applicant makes that. Okay, and he's not here.
Yes, and we don't know the circumstance.
You know, hey.
So what we did here is simply, we'll hear the planning testimony of his planner. But again, anything factual has to come from the applicant, and if the applicant doesn't show, we don't have any factual information for this, because of how he operates his business, the trucks, the hours of operation, these are all very critical in terms of the negative criteria, and we need to hear that.
Absolutely, okay, and, you know, Mr. Planner, with all due respect, okay, you testified as to the elements of hardship and so on. Did you ever hear the word called due diligence?
Yes,
What does that mean?
you said you've done research, or what is your question in particular?
Okay, do you do due diligence before you purchase a piece of property?
I'm not the applicant.
Well, you're testifying of your ability to know all about zoning laws and everything. Okay, would you, every developer that I've ever met and seen, okay, or been involved in, always does due diligence. It's kind of like kicking the tires before you buy something, making sure that the motor's there and so forth, okay? And I guess, maybe it's my Italian nature, but when you see something that is really cheap and nobody has bought it for years, okay, maybe you think twice about buying that property, okay? Why didn't anybody else buy that property, okay? And I think that's the real definition of due diligence. Would you agree?
I'm not here to answer your definition.
Yes, but you were giving hypotheticals all about zoning, okay? What's allowed in an R1 and an R2, okay? But the bare basics are, would you buy a junk piece of property at a good deal and then hope that you're going to get it through a zoning or a planning board?
Well, since Mike didn't buy the property, I think we'd be better off focusing on whether you think it's a bad idea.
Okay, well then all his testimony
But
should
he
be
didn't talk
flushed.
about what I did or didn't do when I bought it. He didn't buy it.
Well, then I take objection of him testifying to the elements, okay, of the criteria and hardships and everything, okay, for a variance.
If you disagree, you should say why you disagree.
Okay, well, I disagree with his concepts of why a variance should be granted.
I'm sure you
okay?
were not here.
Yeah, he's good guy, I ain't out to bang him. Okay, and I see how nervous you are, keep looking over your shoulder to see that your client's not here yet.
But, no, I think we'd be better off as a group.
I think we should, I don't think we should tell the public what questions they should ask. I think they should do that, ask questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't testify about the yellow.
I don't want you to leave, Mr. Booth.
But he was testifying to the board, okay, about how zoning variances work. Did you not testify to that?
I think Mr. DeLuca supports my testimony. He said that it's a property that's been undeveloped for years. And that's what I said.
There's a reason for that, though.
Exactly. And I said, you have a youth that can take this particular piece of property and use it, unlike the other uses. And therefore, that's why we believe that this particular use can take advantage of what you would call a property that's been compromised. So you're basically supporting what I said, that it's been sitting there and it's not been developed and it's cheap. Therefore, the uses that could have been there are not. And now you have an applicant that says, okay, I'm not a parochial school, I'm not a house, this works for me. And that's what my testimony was.
The property is privately owned, since 1996, and it only went up.
Excuse me.
Okay, wait.
Excuse me, sir, we have no crosstalking, one person at the mic.
I respect what you're saying, sir, okay, well, and I will invite you, I have to get one of your cards, and we can buy, what's the George Strait song? Oceanfront property in Kansas, I think it is. What's the name of that song? Arizona, okay. You'd be good there, okay? Sell oceanfront property there. And anyhow, this is just ridiculous. We're going through a process without the applicant, okay? Unfortunately, the board has got to make a decision, okay, on what you're going to do if the applicant doesn't show up. Is it an automatic withdrawal, okay? I hope it's not a postpone, because I think that's total disrespect to this board, okay, and to the neighborhood, and also to his professional people, okay, so that shouldn't be allowed, okay. Again, last month I gave you kind of a little bit of maybe an insight of dealing with properties like this. This is not the only piece of property that's similar to this, okay. It's a mined property that's junk, and nobody wants it, okay. Triber, an old guy by the name of Sandberg, which was the original owner of the property before I was even born, okay, and he dug a hole in the ground, okay, and there's several holes in the ground back there, okay. It's just like the ravine over in El Dorado Hills, if any of you are familiar with that, okay, the big ravine that sits between El Dorado Hills and Shoes Landing Road, okay, you know how they fix that, okay, after a developer from Gloucester Township made a pocket full of money on it, okay, but, okay, they sold it to open space, okay?
Can I hold you right there? That is a great idea. I have no doubt it's a great idea. What we did on the property is up to the owner of the property, okay, to be.
I hear you, okay, but also, I think it's maybe part of government, okay, and I'll tell you, I've done it numerous times, okay, when you have people that are doing battle, okay, and issues like this, you kind of invite them to a nonchalant meeting, okay, with the borough solicitors, okay, the attorneys and the engineers, and say, you know, would you consider selling your property, and not saying that you're not going to approve it, okay, but would you consider maybe entertaining this as open space, okay? And that way, the owner recovers it, okay? And you can do that, okay, in a proper legal manner, okay? I realize that.
Can be made. We're here simply to discuss the applicant's proposed use, okay? 3 acres, all that, perfect. But right now, we've got an application that wants to use it for a specific thing. If you could limit your comments or directions to that aspect, and that is really just the planning testimony. And you're right about the historical information that he does not have in terms of why this property never moved.
I agree, and I don't mean to be,
limited to
you know,
that, okay?
but again, I, you know, if he doesn't show up, what do we do? Is he going to be granted a postponement? God bless. Have a great day.
My fault.
Speak, sir, I'm sorry. Could you state your name?
Nicholas Massaro,
Could you spell that for me?
M-U-S-E-R-O.
First name?
Nicholas,
And could you give me your address, please?
2218 Bangor Ave.
And sir, if you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give this evening will be the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not here to ask questions, I'm just trying to throw some general statements out there. I live 25 feet from where he is trying to plan on doing this. He's 16 feet on the ground, so that means I gotta look 16 feet down, plus whatever height my front window is at trucks, equipment, dump material, not to mention the petroleum, is what asphalt is based out of. The smell, the stench. Dumping, I actually met this guy when he first looked at the property, and he said he was looking to buy it, and everywhere he goes to dump the material, he needs to be tested. And he can just come here and dump it and not have to worry about it, which is the issue. Let's talk about maintenance. His truck, he said his guys need, if his truck's ain't on the road, he's not making money. What if his truck breaks down? His business hours, say, are 7 to 5, normal business hours, 9 to 5, banker hours. Now his truck breaks down. Now, they're putting 150 building in for what reason? To work on their equipment. So now, 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, now he's gonna be working on his equipment to get it back out on the road by 7 a.m. You know, that's gonna be an issue. Traffic, up and down the road. And the way I see it, he says he's gonna use an ASNAP, but if they're coming from 561, they'll use ASNAP. If they're coming from White Pike, they're gonna use Banger. Go around the dirt road, you have kids, you have people riding their bikes, walking dogs. I mean, I see 3 people every hour walking dogs past my house, or kids riding their bikes past my house. Now you gotta worry about tracks or dump trucks coming up the street, and not to mention the employees, like no one knows who the employees are now. Everyone, you know, a lot of construction companies do bring in people that they can find, like anybody, anywhere, and so they might be bringing bad guys in, they might not, you know, but traffic. And just the danger factor of kids. Period. Like, there's a lot of kids that play in here, like at Lindenwold Park, you know, 300 yards away. And kids, they all park there, walk their kids up and down the United States Ave, right at that corner of Aston Ave. So is that not a concern? To, you know, put an asphalt, not plant, but asphalt storage facility, whatever they're technically calling it. And then, like I said, the smell, the contamination, illegal dumping. They already illegally dumped there. That's been reported. He keeps saying that no one wants this property. This property is privately owned since the 90s. I knew the guy. He was an older guy. He had a little tractor down there and just kind of played around and never had intention of selling it. And he passed away. And that's when the property went up for sale. Went up for 50 grand, drop. I had an offer in on the property myself, which is irrelevant. And they came in slightly higher, and now, I don't know what the relevance is, but since the first postponement meeting, he put the property up for sale. I don't know if anyone's aware of it, for $125,000. That he paid $8,000 for. So, is that a deterrent to try to keep us away? Maybe if we don't show up, he'll show up and get the approval. Like, it's all a game right now that the client's playing. He has, it's on a full board, not a full board. Now, tonight's a full board. Where's he at tonight? So, I really don't know what else to say on top of it.
Actually, I did hear from Mr. Williams, or Mr. Allen did, and I'd like to take a 5-minute break and call him back and see what's going on. Whether he'll be showing up or not, because I think that's critical to going forward.
Did you not say that on the first phone call?
Was it?
Did you not say he was coming on the first phone call?
Yeah, I want to call him back if we can talk.
You're going to call.
Yeah, Mike Allen, while we were talking here, received a phone call from Mr. Williams. I want to call him back and see if he's coming or what is going on. You want to take a 5-minute break and see if he's going to show?
No, I don't want to take a 5-minute. We want to see. But you can call him up. We saw some more testimony from the people in the audience. Please, everybody in the audience, could you limit your testimony to the remarks that the planner had made, okay, at this time, because that is what the board is going to make a decision on. Okay, thank you.
I guess that's all I got, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Frank Musero, M-U-S-E-R-O.
Excuse me, let me get, I'm sorry. Could you spell that again?
M-U-S-E-R-O,
And your first name?
Frank,
And your address, sir?
803 United States Avenue.
Okay, sir, could you raise your right hand and then you swear or affirm that the testimony will be received and will be heard? Okay, thank you.
I just want to Just one comment about what the planner had to say about historical data. The person that owned that property lived in Pine Hill. He was an older gentleman, and he had all intentions of putting a house on that property. He was down there every day with his backhoe, moving dirt, making arrangements of where he was going to put the house. I talked to him for hours. And apparently he got sick, very sick, and he passed away before he had a chance. That was supposed to be his pride and joy, as he would say, to develop that piece of property into a residential area. So that's just a little historical data that he said we didn't have any on. So the rest of my comments will be made after the applicant. Just something for you guys to think about, that was going to be developed into a residential house, but the guy passed away, got very sick, and
You saw him there yourself looking on this, right, sir?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. He had a backhoe down there for,
Years.
I bought the property, that's my son, he lives in the house. I bought the property in 2016.
Perfect.
Right?
Perfect.
And he was down there every day, working, sweating, and like I said, he just, apparently he got some kind of either cancer or something, I don't know what it was.
Garrett.
And he didn't make it. So that's a little bit of historical data that the planner can provide. Thank you.
Okay, so,
We'll have the applicant continue his testimony.
so unless you want to talk specifically about the planner's testimony.
Well, I did,
Just
yes.
specifically about the planner's testimony, we're going to
Absolutely.
back to the applicant to come forward with
Is
their.
the applicant here?
He's on his way.
No, I'd like to talk about his testimony.
Start with name. Give me your name.
My name is Stephen, Stephen. Last name is Risley, Risley. And the address is 15 Aston Avenue.
Okay, sir, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give this evening will be the whole truth?
Yes, I did. So I have 5 points I want to make. First of all, this is a residential community. Now, I know that the planner brought up all these exceptions, you could put a school there, a park, whatever. And I know that the fire department is there, but the fire department is a service for us as residents. So, I mean, the thing I would ask the board to consider is, would you want a business, I don't care what kind of business it is, but a business that has trucks like this, coming in and out of your neighborhood, up to 8 of them, according to what we've been told, coming in and out of your neighborhood all day long. Now, the gentleman's saying, well, it's only going to be in the morning, it's only going to be seasonal.
Excuse me, sir, is that picture yours?
No, it's from this gentleman here.
Yeah, somebody, yeah.
You can have a picture of
Why
this.
don't you, if you're going to put it up, let's mark it as exhibit,
Yes, I'm going to go like this.
Someone has it marked as Exhibit 4.
Oh, she marked this.
Say that was yours?
This is directly off of their website.
So this is, this is a residential community. It's a wooded area. It's it's almost like a private wooded area. We all bought our houses there because of the atmosphere that it's, and the environment that it's in. This is going to change that for all of us, having these trucks come in and out. That's point number 1 is this is a residential community, and what I ask the board is, would you want this business in your backyard? Because none of us want it in our backyard. Number 2 is, what does this do to our property values? Again, we all were attracted to this area because of what it is. It's a wooded area, it's kind of secluded, it's a nice little corner of town. Now, so those trucks in that picture are going to come in, according to the planner here, on Aston Avenue. They're going to drive by Joe's house, which is nice and quiet right now. He keeps it nice and clean. He's constantly out there maintaining it. Then they're gonna go by John's house. They're gonna go past the entrance to my house, go right across from Nick's house, and park in this little hole in the ground, as you call it. So what does that do to Joe's property value, to John's property value, to my property value, to Nick's, to everyone else's in here? So that's the second point that I'd like you to consider is, what is this going to do to our property values? It's certainly not going to help. The other point I'd like to make is, to the planner's testimony, he said that, well, it's only going to be certain hours, certain seasons, blah, 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 certain number of trucks. Who's going to police that? I mean, how many trucks is it going to be, sir? You know how many trucks it's going to be?
I'm leaving that to the applicant to testify.
Okay, so we have to wait for the applicant who hasn't paid his taxes to come back and testify as to how many trucks there are. But who's going to police that? Let's say the guy says, oh, it's going to be 8 trucks. Next thing you know, 10 trucks show up. Who's going to police that, and who's going to enforce that, if that's the case? The fourth point I'd like to make, again, I have 5 points. Again, this is a wooded area. This is an area that has a lot of wildlife. There's deer back there. There's turkeys, raccoons, possums, you name it. We even see coyotes back there every once in a while. So what does this do to, what's the environmental impact of putting a business in the middle of this area where there's all this wildlife? Has anyone considered that? And again, that affects all of our enjoyment, the peaceful enjoyment of all of us in that neighborhood. Finally, to Mr. DeLuca's point, and this may not be relevant, but I am going to put it out there. I do think that if we got together as neighbors and figured out a way to make this as a permanent open space, we would be open to that, and we would probably be willing to each, put up some money for that. So, thank you.
I could make a point. I said we are coming forward now, we're really kind of limiting this to cross-examining the plan. Okay, there will be a period after the applicant puts his case in chief in, where anybody who wants to comment can come forward. But unless you had a question of the plan, cross-examining or a question about something that he said, I would ask that you keep your comments till the applicant has concluded their presentation, and then the ball is in your court to come forward. Okay?
Issue for vote.
I just have a statement.
Question for the planner.
No, it's just a statement that I made. I did buy a house in 2013.
Okay.
Just to clear that up.
Please proceed. We're going to go to the applicant, and then you have a question for the planner.
Hi.
Give me your name, please.
My name's Debbie Canan. I live at 807 United States.
Could you start that?
I live at 807 United States Avenue.
Okay, and if you could raise your right hand, you swear or affirm that the testimony you give today will be the truth.
It is. I wanted to clarify a question that came from the attorney. In the beginning, you said it was a 2-part plan. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, typically, a proposal like this requires a site plan to show with precision the paving, the building, the lighting, drainage, things like that. We also need a use variance, and the law allows you to split the proposal, deal with the use first, because if the use is denied, then we stop. If the use is approved, then we come back to the full site plan. So that's what I meant by that.
Okay. So now this is to you, Mr. Engineer. When the plans are being made, you're not only thinking about the parking lot and the water that's running down from where that piece of land is down to United States Avenue and possibly even Ashton Avenue, where when we have rain, torrential rains, we have water that comes down the road and just puddles there and leaves a lot of sand also from that area. So then when cars or trucks come out of that area, they spin out or could possibly cause a problem going out onto United States Avenue. And can I ask you, when you're talking about the lighting, is this lighting that's over and above what we see on our streets already, so that possibly the houses that are all around there are going to have lighting shoot in their windows?
Let me answer the question about stormwater,
Okay.
which is an engineering portion of it, not a planning, but as of, next thing. The first part is stormwater. We're currently experiencing certain conditions at the site, and as is required during the development process, we're supposed to address runoff rate reduction, we're supposed to address water quality, we're supposed to address groundwater recharge. So those are elements that, as Pat had indicated, will be on that second phase of the engineering phase, which is something that we would do if the board is inclined to give this use variance and approval. The purpose of all of that is that you're supposed to reduce those numbers by certain percentages, such that in the post-development condition, runoff rate reductions is less than the pre-development condition. That is done for the benefit of downstream impacts, so that would be part of the engineering design. Similarly, you asked about the lighting. This is lighting that would be needed on the site. It gets dark at 4:30 on a winter day, whatever the case may be. So this is lights that would be put on the site. Right now, these lights are about, the site itself is about 50 feet below, so you'd have a 10-foot high light pole, and it would be, in most cases, turned off at certain hours. Sometimes they'll have security lights that need to be on because of trying to deter any kind of vandalism or thievery. So these are lights that are on the site or would then be either controlled by a timer or turned off specifically, such that you don't provide the glare that most people would be concerned with. So that's how the lighting would be impacted.
Okay, so now I guess my question is to the board. If this is approved, and if there are lights and all that kind of stuff, do we have, as neighbors, do we have a time to say that the lights are shut off at a certain time? Or the runoff, would this applicant be willing to pay for all the problems that he's going to be causing by putting this building and the parking lot and all that kind of stuff into our neighborhood? I mean, so when will we have that opportunity to talk to them?
There will be a separate hearing for the site plan portion, as the applicant's attorney explained. All those engineering-related issues, glare from lights, stormwater, road conditions, sewer, water, any infrastructure kind of things handled at that phase. They're not that detailed at this phase. So like you said, we're looking for the use variance. So anything with technical data related to those things that I just spoke about, that would be handled during the site plan phase, and that's open to the public as well.
Okay.
So if we got to that point, then we have the same way with the apple rate, there would be variances you can notice about the site plan within 200 feet, and you go through this whole process again, but for a site plan, not for a use variance.
Okay. I see that he's here, and so I'm going to save my next questions
We
for...
need to swear him in first.
Yes. Okay.
Hello, I apologize to everyone. You need me to come up to the line? Hello.
Mr. Williams, the applicant, principal.
Name, please.
William Williams.
I think the application has your address. If you could raise your right hand, swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give.
Yes.
William, first, you're the principal in United Paving,
Yes, I am one solo.
and you're familiar with the application and proposed plan.
Correct.
Okay. Tell us about the use characteristics, because Mike and I have been talking with the board and neighbors about hours and things like that, but we need you to verify that.
So the main thing is I'm a very small business. This is just basically going to be used as a garage. I want everyone to know if I was approved for this, but I'm trying to add to the community, not take away from it. My hours at the yard are going to be to come in the morning, take my equipment, go to a job site, come back. Sometimes I get back at 2 o'clock, sometimes I get back at 4 o'clock. I don't sit there and work on stuff at my yard. It's just basically going to be a storage. It's just going to be basically just a contractor's yard. So no customers are going to be coming there. There's no traffic in and out. I'm not selling anything.
When you say hours, when do you start in the morning, when do you wrap it up at the end?
So I usually pull up between 6:30 and 7 in the morning, and I'm usually done between 2 and 4 p.m. Somewhere in that time, because my supplier usually closes at 3 o'clock. So I have to have my material and everything back, so those are the hours that I'm used to.
What days of the week?
Monday to Friday.
Is this a seasonal operation or?
It is. We run from March till about Thanksgiving time, sometimes a little bit into December.
What kind of vehicles are we talking about? Like, what capacity does this yard have, and what do you expect to have there?
So mostly what I pull out of the vehicle is mostly a pickup truck in the morning, a big dump truck that has 3 pieces of equipment, which is a paver, bobcat, and roller, and then a tool truck or something that follows.
Excuse me, 4 trucks and what? Could you speak to the place us?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Could you, again, itemize the trucks that you use?
So it would be a personal vehicle of mine, which would be like an F-150 pickup truck. It would be a Peterbilt dump truck that has a trailer on it, and then it would have a work van that carries like all my saws, jackhammers, and tools, things that I would need to complete a job.
Any trailers or anything, other equipment?
Just basically the main truck that comes out has all my equipment on it.
What would you be doing any processing, like making macadam or asphalt?
Absolutely not.
Any millings?
No, I do have storage, like sometimes like you'll do a job and you'll dig out clean stone from a job that could be used on another job. So there's always need to like store things, but it's not there to be long. It's to be used on a different site or a different job. But no, I'm not going to be making material or doing anything that's going to be like a grinder that's making loud noise. Nothing along that.
What goes on inside the building that's proposed?
The building is more going to be for storage for winter time and to keep my stuff dry and out of the weather. And occasionally work on our stuff. If we get service on our own vehicles, we would like to. We don't have a mechanic, but it would be nice if I had a building like that, I did have a mechanic.
Questions from the board about the proposed use?
I guess a question from the board. I have one. You said you went to work on your vehicles. Where would you store the oil and everything?
It's not more of like mechanical work like that. I'm just saying, like, if you have a breakdown and you had to weld something that broke, or as far as like servicing like that, I'm not going to be doing crazy stuff like that.
Yes, and the 10 by 15 storage bins, usually you'll be using the front end loader to pull material out of them and put material on it.
So I use a skid steer. That's what I own at this time, and that's all I really need. So we use a skid steer to load.
Any other questions?
These storage bins, what are you putting in the storage bins?
So like I just told you, like reusable material. Nothing that's going to be trash or nothing that's going to be waste there. Just like certain jobs, like some people have like bluestone driveways, or they'll have too much material in the order, or certain things that I can't use on that project but I can use for another project. A lot of times I waste material because I don't have a place to store it. So me having a yard, I would like that ability to be able to save on some material.
So you're saying like topsoil?
Yeah, just anything.
Sand, that kind of thing?
Correct. Correct. It's all useful material that will be in.
Just to clarify, so we get a clear record.
Yes.
Okay, so it's all material that you use when you're doing an asphalt job?
Correct.
So aside from stone, what other materials?
That's pretty much it.
Fill and topsoil?
Fill and topsoil is really going to be at a minimal. I don't have too much use for that.
Mostly stone?
There's an area that's in that yard that actually could use a lot of topsoil because, as you know, that material is very low. I don't know how many years it would take me to fill some of that up, but there's plenty of space for clean topsoil. So I wouldn't be storing that though, I would be using that to more, bring the property up to a little bit more level.
How about the second storage?
Excuse me?
Second storage unit in the back of the property.
I don't know what you're saying there.
Right after the storage area.
So like,
Elevation 46.
like sometimes we have different pieces of equipment, so like if I have something that I'm using on a regular, like a backhoe end or an attachment that goes with one of my skid steers, or I have like big rollers, or I have things, just use it to be able to access it, or anything they could possibly. I don't even know that I'm gonna do that, but when I was dreaming, I'm thinking of things, that's how I envisioned it.
Okay, so how many employees, will your employees come there and pick up the trucks and leave?
Correct, yes.
So how many employees do you have?
So sometimes I have 6, sometimes I have 8, it depends on the season and what I'm doing. But it's a fairly small amount, guys.
Okay, so they will come in the morning between 6:30 and 7 and park their cars all
Correct.
day?
Yep.
And then proceed to their job site?
Yep.
How many dump trucks are there? That was my question.
I have,
Triaxial, just triaxial dump truck like the exhibit that somebody shared. Is it just the one that you have to put a trailer behind, or are you more than
so
that?
basically that's pretty much what I run. I don't have a big operation, so I go to do
So you don't have
driveway.
9 or 10 trucks that you park there?
No.
And then out, okay.
Absolutely not.
So I think that was a big concern.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I basically, even if I grow, I mean, I could have 2 dump trucks. So I'm not gonna grow to the point that I'm gonna have a fleet of dump trucks there. I don't want that aggravation.
So where do you currently store all your vehicles?
In Williamstown on a farm. So I have a farm out that way and I pull out every morning. And that's the main reason that I really did like Lindenwold. Lindenwold is really like the heart of everything. I can get to Voorhees, I can get to Cherry Hill, I can get to local areas that I work. It's a really good community.
So in Williamstown, you store on a farm, did you say?
Correct,
Is
yeah.
it your farm?
No, it's not my
I
farm.
know.
Yeah.
Is this your work truck?
It is.
Now, fully weighted down, I'm guessing that's 80,000? It's hard
It
to-
is, it's a triaxial. Fully loaded, it would be 80,000 pounds.
Did you give any thought to the unpaved road and sewer system in there, constantly traveling on that road? How do you think that will fare with the heavy equipment?
Honestly, I think it should hold up. I think that all our streets are pretty modern streets. I mean, they're well engineered, and the whole idea of it is if they couldn't drive on that street, they couldn't ride on any streets of any area that we work.
You asphalt work, you don't do something else.
Couldn't drive
Excuse
on
me,
our
everyone,
street.
could we please, we'll
You're an engineer,
have an
sewer.
opportunity to speak, ask questions to the applicant when he's finished, please. Thank you.
So I think that it would be okay, yes. I don't see a problem.
Okay, so like this is a use variance, so I want to ask you, in your opinion, what is your positive impact that you're going to have on this community?
Well, honestly, I'm a young entrepreneur that's looking to do things right in life. My dream was always to have a nice yard and a nice garage and to be a part of the community. People know that I'm there. That makes a big difference, you know, when someone says United Haven is in this area, you know. It's more of a community thing, and you do get outwork from that, you know. But my dream is to have a nice garage and to do beautiful plants there and flowers and not just a regular shop that's just making noise and making messes, you know.
You get the vinyl in there. Any other questions for the board?
this time, we'll have questions from the public to the applicant. The applicant may please sit. Now, remind you, these are questions to the applicant, not on the engineer.
I apologize, and I'll make it quick because I promised I'd take my wife for ice cream tonight after this, and I hope they're still open. Anyhow,
They're still under
okay. Yes, sir. How did you purchase this property?
I was looking for acquiring a piece of property, and I found something online and called up the realtor.
Did the realtor tell you what the zoning was?
The realtor wasn't 100% sure, but they did say that maybe it's residential, commercial, or that I would have to go in front of the board and do something like this.
Did he tell you that the norm in a process like that is you put a deposit on the property pending approvals? Did you ever hear that concept?
Sure.
Okay. Your realtor probably should have told you that, in all due respect, sir. Okay. You bought it at a pretty good price, I suppose, and that's good. Okay, that's a good business decision. Okay, but sometimes you got to do due diligence. Okay, when you kick the tires and that type of thing. Did you do due diligence on the property?
I'm doing that right now today, sir.
Yeah, but that's like after you bought the car, you realized it didn't have no transmission, you know. I guess my next question is you have to have a hardship when you ask for a zoning change, okay? In other words, zones, okay, the town fathers years ago gave different areas zones, okay? Residential, apartments, okay? Commercial properties, businesses, and so on and so forth. And this was designed as a residential property, okay? And every couple of years, the planning and so forth, they review all this to make sure that there's no mistakes made, okay? And obviously, they haven't changed this from a residential use to a commercial use, okay? In their infinite wisdom, they felt that that was fine, the way it was, okay? So part of the criteria, as your planner explained before coming in, is that you have to show a couple of reasons why you want a zoning change. And the number one reason is a hardship, okay? What's your hardship?
Yeah, actually, he didn't testify about hardship.
Well, I know, that's what I'm asking.
Nor did Mr. Avila. I think Mr. Avila focused on it was very well suited for this use, which is a different criteria.
That's his personal opinion. And, well,
This gentleman testified about hours of operation, that sort of thing. He didn't testify about hardship.
Okay, well, am I allowed to ask him that now?
Okay. Answer the question. I mean,
Wanted to clarify
now
something.
we have the public ask the applicant questions. I think the applicant should answer the question.
Yeah.
I mean, if Mr. DeLuca wants to ask you a question or the attorney, he should answer it. Right now, he's asking the applicant a question.
I'm glad that the answer was a good question, but I would like the board to realize we're not asking for a zoning change. That's a totally different.
Zoning change or variance.
Use variance. Okay.
And what is the definition of a variance, sir? I'll ask you that.
It's a deviation from the standards. But
To deviate from the standard. Is this a deviation from an R1 use group?
It's not a zoning change, it's all telling the board.
Well, to answer your question, okay, I'll direct it to you, okay? You said that a variance is a deviation from the norm.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you consider this to be a deviation from the norm?
I consider this to be a deviation from the norm, but I do not consider it to be a zoning change as far as the district. It's still an R1 district that would allow for the use variance process, a use that's not permitted within the zoning district, not a zoning change. The board is not being asked to reclassify the R1 as a C1, I1, R1, B1.
I don't understand your game of words, but anyhow, okay. Again, am I allowed to ask the applicant what his hardship is?
Yes.
So basically, the way that this land was, it was a perfect fit for what I had. That was basically why I was looking at this land and why I want to use it the way that I'm using it. I think it would be hard for anyone else to be able to use this without spending a crazy amount of money on bringing that land back up to a level land. And again, when I planned of doing this, I had everybody in mind. You know, I have 2 acres of land, I'm only using within an acre of land, and I'm trying to be respectful of everybody around me.
And so I appreciate that, okay? You got a good deal, okay? And, you know, you hope to get the variance, but you kind of made, your realtor is the one that screwed you, buddy, okay? He should have told you to get, you know, put a deposit on the property pending approvals, okay? All right, now, so you don't have a hardship, I guess, okay? You know, we can define hardship if you want to, okay? But we don't have to go there, okay? Then I guess the next thing is the impact to the existing neighborhood, okay? Now, okay, you're familiar with the neighborhood?
I am.
Okay, do you know some problems in that neighborhood right now?
I really don't.
Okay, look in the sky. I'll give you a hint. It's got flashing lights on it. It's a 300-foot tower in our backyard, okay? But you know what? On behalf of the police and the firemen and so forth, which I was, okay, you respect that, okay? You ever been around that property during the day?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Have you heard?
With gunfire, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All these people we put up with that. Okay. And again, you know, you have to have a firing range someplace, but it's in our backyard. Okay, so we're very, very sensitive to changes in our neighborhood. Okay.
I understand that. I do.
And you know,
I am trying to make it better though.
I understand, but here's the reality. I'll tell you like it is. You got a good deal, okay? You want to get your approvals, okay? And I respect that. But
Price really has nothing to do with it though.
sure it does. Okay. Why do you think it sat for so long and nobody bought it?
I have no idea.
But did that ever come into your mind?
No, it didn't. The area suited me. When I look around that area, I see you pull out to the front, you have all kinds of construction all on that main road. You have the county there. You have Triborough, certain gravel. It kind of fit my area. It kind of fit my narrative.
In our
Am I allowed to ask you why you're moving off the farm?
I told you that to be more central to my business.
What plant are you using?
What do you mean?
Asphalt plant.
I use National David.
Okay.
Yes, they're out of Berlin.
How far is that from you?
I don't know exactly, but it's very close to Lindenwold. Very close.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them. Okay. Again, another part of a variance is the impact on the neighborhood. Am I correct?
It is.
Okay. You feel that there is no negative impact to the neighborhood?
I think that I would be bringing something better.
No.
Okay, obviously you're familiar with streets and the construction of them, okay? All right, well, I think one of the places you indicated you were going to exit upon was Darby Avenue. Okay? That's an unimproved path.
And I was doing that out of respect to the neighbors, not pulling in and out and having kind of commotion there. It's a very, very quiet street to come in and out of. And I was doing that out of respect.
Did your engineer tell you, okay, that part of the next process that we're going into, okay, is all the nuts and bolts, okay? And I know this board has done that numerous times whereby, you know, you hear the infamous streets or sidewalks and curbing. Well, my neighbor don't have them, but I got them, okay? Well, how about he doesn't have a street, so he should probably build a street. What's the cost of building Darby Avenue, curb sidewalks?
A lot.
Okay, would that affect you still buying that property?
No, it wouldn't.
So you would say, okay, I'll spend $500,000 in building.
No, I didn't say that I was going to build the road there, but the road the way that it is, I could be able to use it the way it is.
I don't think our engineers like that. I don't think they would buy into that. But I mean, these are the things, sir, in all due respect, you know, and I don't mean to rag on the professionals, but you know what? Sometimes you got to tell the truth, okay, to your clients of what the potentials are that you could be up against, okay?
I'm fairly aware of that.
And
I respect your views.
your realtor, are you related to the realtor or anything?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Did he tell you how long he's had it on the market?
We didn't go into that. I like the property and I bought it. Speaking to him, within a week I own the property.
Okay.
That-
Is the property listed now?
It is.
And how's it listed?
What do you mean, how is it listed?
How's it listed?
What do you mean by that, how is it listed?
What's it say, okay, when you,
Land for sale.
okay, does it say residential?
Doesn't say anything.
And it doesn't say building lots?
It says lot for sale.
And what was the price?
$125,000.
And how much did you pay for it, sir?
I don't think that's the whole committee business.
It's public information. I can go in the tax office tomorrow and find out. You know, it's up to you, okay?
Mr. DeLuca, with all due respect, we are here for the variance. These are a lot of questions that would be asked in the site plan. Could we give somebody else in the audience a chance to speak, please?
Thank you, sir.
Sorry.
Okay, I would just like to talk to the board and they, you know, he has not matched the criteria of hardship, okay? And he's refusing to talk about the impact of the neighborhood, okay? The upgrading of streets, okay? And mainly the impact of the
That's
neighborhood.
why we want to hear from the public about
Okay.
their vision of the impact on the
Can I ask you a question? Are we cross-examining him based on his testimony? Or are we just doing broad public objections?
Well, I've been trying to do that. I've been trying to limit the questions to the applicant based on what he's testified and what cross-examined. I know you all have comments about the application in general, which you will get your chance once the applicant rests his case here. You'll all get that chance. So the questions that you will ask of the applicant will be related to the testimony that he's given, okay? Or any questions that you have around what he said. And then if you have comments, we'll do that later. If you have your chance to speak just from your gut about the application after we concluded the applicant's presentation.
My name is Diane Akins.
Okay, Diane, what was your last name again, Diane?
It's Akins, E-A-K-I-N-S.
Okay.
My address is 975 Derby Avenue. Lindenwold.
Could someone fix the microphone for here?
Could I take
Okay,
it from there?
raise your right hand.
Can I take this
Swear to
now?
affirm the testimony you will be true.
Hello?
Hi. I live right on that little street.
On the corner,
That's
okay.
27 foot wide, about 50 foot wide. And you're gonna drive that big truck down that street. And you don't think that's going to interfere with the neighborhood kids, with the animals, with the noise?
Absolutely not.
Why not? If you want to put something like this in, you don't think you could have went around the neighborhood and asked how the neighbors felt before you did it?
Honestly speaking, I didn't know the whole procedure. I'm new to this of anyone. I've never bought a piece of property before and tried to do a variance, so I'm going through that now.
I bought my house 45 years ago. This house is exactly what I wanted to retire to. With the woods, with the deer, with the turkeys, with everything but the noise of a big triaxle going down the street. I don't want the lights flashing or anything like that. I wanted to retire in quiet. Not this.
I can understand if there was a major operation and it was being loud.
There is a major operation. The street is 27 foot wide. Your picture looks as though it means it's 50 foot wide, and it's not. I've got pictures of it. I've got pictures of the deer that's around there. I've got whatever picture you want to get. It's not like that.
The 50 foot is the right of way. That's what that means.
Okay, well, you know what, let me just show
Doesn't mean
you.
it's not the
This is a
right way.
picture, this is the picture of the street.
So the right-of-way width is not necessarily the same as the right-of-way. The right-of-way is the amount of width that the is dedicated for the street and a future widening perhaps or
Okay,
whatever.
well,
Utilities.
because Triborough has a guardrail on one side where you can't go or you'll fall in the pit. It has a guardrail. The other side, where he's at, has the trees and the, the poles,
I'll state
all
that.
this
I'm
that's up
not
here.
familiar with
This
the
is
site,
a-
I'm just explaining it the right way, isn't that
Okay.
necessarily?
Well, I'm sorry I said it the wrong way. But this
I don't
is
think
the
anybody's-
frustration when you find out after living here for all these years, that somebody's gonna come along and just, interfere with my way of living. I'm really frustrated. I've got animals out here that I feed, that
I am gonna try to keep it as natural as I
it's
possibly
not gonna be
can.
natural.
No, it won't
You're gonna be a problem, I can see it. Just being in the neighborhood, you're not familiar with this area, I don't care what you say, you're not familiar with Lindenwold. You don't know these people in this room. You don't know how they live.
Yeah, right now you're talking at the applicant. We want testimony that resides with asking the applicant questions on what he testified. This is a procedural thing. General comments will be made.
Yeah, all your comments have to do with the overall application, okay?
Can be done afterwards.
And once the applicant finishes his presentation, the public will be able to come and talk just in general about.
Well, I apologize, because I was here at 6 o'clock and he was not. So I'm missing out on my evening after I worked all day around trucks. So I know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
So I am upset that I had to waste my evening down here where it doesn't seem as though anybody is on my side, and I'm the one who's going to be.
We had to come back 3 times.
Right. It was always postponed, everybody knows that.
You don't want to cut you short, and there'll be an opportunity as soon as they conclude for you to finish up your comments. We just want to get this presentation done so we can hear all your comments. Your comments. But we have to give the people in the
Well, I feel
audience.
like I gave everybody else a chance.
The opportunity to cross-examine the applicant and also the applicant's professional planner. That is this part of the proceeding. Your ability to come and ask questions of those two. Your comments about the application are welcome, and they will come when the applicant finishes their presentation, okay? We're not trying to cut you short, we're just trying to conclude that part of the proceeding. Because it is getting late, okay?
It's just that when they were testifying and saying what they had, they kept going on and on. And I wasn't able to say, wait a minute, at that point. So now I'm just coming out with everything. I apologize.
My name is John Akins. I live at 975 Derby Avenue.
John Abrams?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Okay, and your address again? Your address, please, sir.
975 Derby Avenue. I'm Diane's husband.
First, your name to swear or affirm that the testimony that you will proceed with will be the
I do. Okay.
How are you?
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I own and operate a heavy truck equipment shop for over 45 years. We repair triaxle dumps, we repair little dumps, we repair pickups. And I've been doing it for 45 years, we're our 3rd generation, so I know a thing or two about truck. I can tell you that truck there, that 80,000 pound triaxle truck, is not going to be able to go by my house too much without cracking my foundation. And as far as the plumbing, the sewage going up and down that street, I can tell you for 45 years that I've been there, it's been untouched. So I know when you start driving these big trucks over that, and particularly if you have millings on the truck, which I'm sure you're going to have at the end of the day, you're not going to get rid of your millings after 4 o'clock. you probably want to store in your yard, in your bins. That's what you're gonna store, millings, I'm sure. I mean, your application for our neighborhood is not a good fit. And, you know, I'm sorry you purchased this property, but as Frank DeLuca said, due diligence is a very important thing about going forward in a business. I've been a business owner for 45 years, and I know all about this stuff. And I can tell you firsthand, my truck shop is noisy. You know, you have, in your application, you're gonna have a triaxle dump truck going up the street, and to clean that body up, what do your guys do? They raise the dump body, they drive up, and they hit the brakes, and they slap it with the tailgate. That gets all the millings loose. And I can tell you that's noisy. I'm aware of everything your operation does. And I've been sitting here quiet, all these meetings. But I can tell you firsthand, your operation is not a good fit for our neighborhood.
So, once again, John, you're telling him, this is the part where you ask him questions, you don't tell him what you know, you ask him.
Okay, well,
Okay.
then I wanted to make a point.
And he'll be welcome at the next.
Okay, do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, just to be fair, that we're going by the 80,000 pounds.
Right.
The most likely of that truck coming up that road, 80,000 pounds, is maybe once a month. It's
Okay.
not gonna be where I'm coming home with material every night. That's not what I do. I'm a very small operation. I know if you're looking like AP Construction, or if you're looking at Triborough,
People like that.
all them big boys that do, I'm more like a landscaper. I'm on a smaller
I've seen your
scale.
website.
Yes, I know, but I'm on
Your
a,
website does you credit.
well, I'm a part of the, I'm a small company. I'm not looking to be a big company. I'm not looking to be Pioneer Pipe. I would never want to put my operation in this neighborhood. If I was Pioneer Pipe, it would make no sense.
Right.
I'm a community guy. What I'm doing is going to be quiet. What I'm doing is, I know you're saying the big truck, and
Yeah.
this is state-of-the-art equipment. This isn't stuff
I
that...
work on state-of-the-art equipment.
And I'm not actually working in my yard. That's a storage that for me to come home and park
You're
my
going to
equipment
be
and go home.
working, fixing the trucks in your yard, yes?
I told you that you asked about the building,
Right.
and I answered that, yes, I would like to, if I have some welding to do. I
You're
have,
going to be doing preventive maintenance, oil changes and such. You don't, you're crazy.
so the thing of it is I have a mechanic now where I take my stuff now and I get
Right.
treated well.
Right.
And if I can take my stuff and continue that, how often do you service your stuff? 3 times a year. I'm a seasonable business.
Right.
Me saving that kind of money, I don't have 50, I don't have a fleet. So
You have enough trucks to cause a nuisance for our area.
I don't believe that that would be true. I believe that I could add to the community. I really do.
Well, I'm here 45 years. Frank DeLuca was here before me. Nick Mazzaro was before me. And there's a few other. I mean, the Ashton's been here for 50 years.
Again,
I
John.
mean, we're all here.
We can make statements after this part of the applicant's,
I'm sorry, I
yeah,
can't.
we can make statements after.
Okay. I
Okay,
just wanted to make-
right
just wanted to
now,
make
we're
a
cross-examining the applicant, we're asking
Okay.
about questions.
I mean, I'll go back and I'll be quiet, but I just want everybody to know that I am an expert in this field.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't knock me on now.
Frank Massaro?
Frank, could you please direct your questions to the applicant?
That's all you.
Okay, good. I got a question about the hardship. Maybe I missed it, but what is your hardship if you're not granted this use variance as required by the state of New Jersey?
I'm going to object to that because it's not, we did not present a hardship case. We presented a particular well-suited site case.
What type of variance you're applying for?
The use variance.
A C use variance, right? C use variance by the state of New Jersey, you're required to provide a hardship.
Excuse me.
Tell me what the hardship is.
It was a D variance case. The positive criteria that Mr. Allen testified to was that it was particularly well-suited. He also testified there should not be negative impacts.
You don't have to provide a hardship.
Just for purposes of clarification. The use variance.
I'm not a planner, so I'm not a licensed planner, I'm an engineer, but I've
If I remember correctly, last meeting we were at, I'm sorry.
12 criteria for use variance that can be used for special reasons might,
I think that he's relying on what I said
Yeah.
last time, and I basically said this.
doesn't necessarily have to be a hardship.
You can have a use variance, it can be based on either a hardship, or it can be based on the use that actually advances the goals of zoning. So you either base your case on a hardship, and the hardship has to do not with financial hardship, it has to do with the land.
I don't believe you said that the
Yes,
last
I did,
meeting.
I know exactly what I said, because I have my notes right here. A hardship, and the second one is that your use will advance the goals of zoning. And if you put forth that argument, then you have to say that the property is particularly suited for this use. So there's two uses. I know this by heart, and I know I said it last time. Hardship is one, hardship is the one that everybody knows about, but the second one is the flexible one, it's C2, and it basically says, if you have a use that actually is not permitted, but it is a use that actually will advance zoning goals, sometimes this happens with affordable housing. Maybe it's not permitted there, but it advances a goal of zoning. And if the property is particularly suited for that use, that's another reason. So there's two reasons to get a CDO.
What does the application say? What's the applying for?
Well, he just says a use variance, and they put forth their argument.
So he doesn't have to spell that out on the application?
The planner did put forth his argument on this.
That doesn't have to be on the application, is what you're
No,
telling me?
there's just a provision for a use variance. That's all they have to check.
Okay. Second question. Your trucks, you said you only have one dump truck. You have no trailers?
I do. I have a equipment trailer, yes.
And what do you haul on that?
A paver, bobcat, and a roller.
What's the weight of that?
I don't know the exact weight of it, but it's not 80,000 pounds.
Do you tow it with the triaxle?
Yes, yeah.
That's the only dump truck you have with the triaxle?
Yeah, I have another dump truck that's a small truck, but that's more like a landscaper truck. It's not intended for heavy use.
Okay. How about, at the end of the day, when you bring your dump trucks back to the lot, and it has additional or extra asphalt on it, what do you do with that?
So the asphalt will never come back to my yard. The asphalt goes back to the asphalt plant. Asphalt that's cold or not usable cannot be used. It needs to be dumped. And
Where are you going to dump that at?
at National Pavement in Berlin.
What are their hours?
Their hours are 7 to 3, but customers that buy have a ticket, can go in after hours, everything's under camera.
Okay. When you start up that diesel in the morning, that triaxle, how many decibels is that?
I don't have that information.
I
But
think that's valuable information to us in this neighborhood, especially to the Akins. You're going to drive right up their driveway with your triaxle coming out of your lot. It's going to go in their driveway.
it's about the same decibels as a school bus or a trash truck.
Can I ask a question to the board? Mr. Wells in particular? Yes. Does your trash trucks go up Derby Avenue? Or do they stop at the end of Banger, turn around, come around, go down Ashton, pick up their trash and then turn around and come back?
I'm not exactly sure.
You're not sure?
I don't drive the truck.
I know you don't. I know you don't. I know you don't.
They don't pay for it.
I'm not under question.
I'll tell you for a fact what they do. They go to the end of Banger, they pick up the FOP, they back up into their lot, and they turn around. They go down Astor, they do the rest of Aston, they go to their house, pick up their trash, he backs up, and he goes back out to US Ave.
Okay.
So we're not even putting trash trucks on.
We're leaving the point of order now.
But I'm just,
I understand that, and
I
you
asked.
said you could make these comments at the end.
It wasn't a comment, it was a question to the board, and I asked for that.
Very good question about the decibels, absolutely.
All right?
I think
And he didn't answer
Okay.
that, okay?
And he didn't answer it, right?
Okay.
He doesn't know.
How about dumping of materials that you dig up from somebody's driveway? Where's that gonna go?
So, it depends on what I'm doing, if it's useful or if it's not.
How about creosoted railroad ties that were dumped at the end of Bangor Avenue?
They weren't dumped there, they was gonna be used.
They weren't dumped there.
No,
They weren't?
they were on my property and someone actually removed them from
Yeah.
my property.
They had the township removed.
Right, well, I had use for it, it was on my property.
You had use for them?
Yes, I did,
You did?
I did.
Yeah? Did you have that dirt tested, all that stone tested that you dumped there?
I never dumped no stone or
No?
no dirt there.
And all the stuff that was underneath the railroad ties?
No dirt or no stone has been dumped, nothing's been, I've had one meeting with the town before I even did anything, and I asked them what I could do and what I can't do, and I'm following procedure to this day.
Want me to show you the pictures?
I don't need pictures.
No, I'm telling you, I got pictures.
I could put.
I got pictures of what you dumped
I
down
could
there.
put wooden
Okay?
railroad ties on my property,
Oh.
it's my property.
You're illegally dumping. That's an illegal dump.
On my own property?
Yes. Yeah, you need permits to dump on your property.
Maybe I wanted to block people.
I don't care what you need to do,
To
you're
use my
dumping.
property.
You should apply for a permit through the town.
Nobody
to dump.
said it didn't even on my property.
This is a cross-examination on his testimony.
Your applicant's answering the questions. Do you have any other questions?
No, I'm done.
Okay, sorry. All right. All right, we're gonna close the.
Oh, we got one more.
To the applicant.
But everybody will have an opportunity, because you did come before, sorry. you will
This
have
just
an
gentleman wasn't here when I was here earlier.
Okay, but not yet. Are you going to ask the question of the applicant?
Yes,
Based on his testimony?
absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Because you did recite before, it's very nice, but a bunch of 6 points that you made. You did
5.
have that.
Yes.
But right now, can you just limit it because of time to questions of the applicant?
Sure.
Okay?
So, Mr. Williams, were you aware that this is a residential community when you bought the property?
Honestly, of course, yes.
All right, can I ask where you live? Because you work on the farm, but you don't live on the farm.
No, I live in Deptford.
Okay, and what kind of community is it?
Oh, community.
Okay. Is it the type of community that if this type of business was being brought in, would you think it's going to help the community?
I have a neighbor across the street that does tree work, and he dumps his trees, and he grinds them up, and he does things, and you know what, he even gives me wood once in a while.
Okay, so you'd be fine with this type of business coming into your community?
I would be, because I know what my intentions are,
Okay?
but I would understand your intentions if you thought that it was gonna be something that it's not. I'm not an asphalt plant. I'm a small business, but.
We understand what kind of business it is, with the trucks coming in and out.
Yeah.
Did you, when you bought the property, were you aware that there's a lot of kids in the neighborhood that ride around on bikes? Were you aware that there's a lot of people who walk around the communities, are parked across United States Avenue? There's a bike path, a walking path, and people kind of end up in our community kind of walking around?
So that's a part of my life. I drive to job sites every day, see school buses, kids coming off, pulling into people's neighborhood. We're very conscious of everything. We're going to be even more conscious on our own road.
So you're saying that earlier you said in your testimony that this is going to improve our community. You think it's going to be helpful for the kids on bikes and the people who walk around the community to have these trucks coming up and down the roads?
I think that the property right now, the way that it sits, it's been mined. I don't know how long it's been mined with all the dirt out of it. Seeing a building tucked down in there, nice and neat, clean, with grass and bushes and fences and all the things that I'm looking to put up, I don't think that it would hurt the community, no.
So you think that a building being there is better than woods where the deer come and turkeys and coyotes and things like that? You think that a building...
I'm not a wild, I don't know.
Not a tree hunter?
You have the firehouse there, you have the police commission building there, you have other things, it kind of goes together. I didn't think it was pulling down a cul-de-sac and putting a piece of building.
Well, it is pulling down a cul-de-sac, but you're passing residential properties. You're passing my neighbor Joe's house. Because you said you want to be respectful, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you're being respectful by bypassing certain neighbors and going past other neighbors instead. Is that respectful? Joe, do you feel like you're being respected? John, do you feel like you're being respected? Nick, do you feel like you're being respected?
Could we, you have to ask the applicant a question.
Do you think that your neighbors are feeling respected?
I think that you guys are fighting for something, but you don't understand that I could bring nice things to the community.
We don't
I'm not a
like
bad guy.
We have nice things. We like the way,
I know.
we all bought our
I'd
properties.
like to be a part of your community too.
We all bought our properties contingent on the deer and the turkeys being there, not you. Okay? So, Mr. Williams,
It's not preserved land though, it's land for sale.
it's not reserved land, but if it was up to us, it will be someday. Mr. Williams, when you bought the land, what did you think that bringing your business into our community was going to do to our property values?
Basically, just like anything else that comes to the community, things change, things go up. I don't think that I was bringing anything bad.
What's that?
I didn't think I was bringing anything bad, and I believe that my value of what my property would bring to the value of your property up.
So your opinion is that you bringing a business into a residential community is going to raise the values of the properties within that community?
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't think that anyone else would agree with that.
No.
Now, you said in your testimony that your business is seasonal, correct?
Correct.
So can you guarantee me that I'm not going to see any of your trucks in January in our community?
If we have a mild, and it's 70 degrees out and it's above freezing, I might be taping in January.
So I might see a truck in January.
You might.
I won't see one for maintenance or going for any other reason?
I'm a seasonal business, so when the asphalt plants close, I close.
Okay.
I do not plow.
So you can guarantee me I won't see one of your trucks in February?
I can't guarantee you that.
I can't guarantee you
I
that.
cannot.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie to you.
And you say you start at 7 a.m. around and you're back sometime in the afternoon. Can you guarantee me I won't see a truck at noon?
No, I could not.
So the trucks could be coming at any time of the day, couldn't they?
They could.
Could they be coming at overnight? I mean, do you ever do work at night?
No.
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 Okay. So what's the latest that I might see a truck coming past?
When it gets dark out.
Okay? When you bought your property, Mr. Williams, were you aware of the environmental impact that bringing a business like this would do to our neighborhood? Were you aware of the deer population that we have, of turkeys, of the other wildlife that we have in our neighborhood?
Yes, I am. There's deer everywhere.
There is now.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you have an idea what?
Again, this is not preserved land. I'm not trying to take preserved land and turn it into, this is a lot that I'm trying to use a variance for.
Okay, it's not preserved land, but it's part of our community, and we all bought our houses contingent on that being what it is.
I understand. I want to be respectful to you, and I understand.
I understand you want to be respectful also. We were all here at 6 o'clock. Do you think it's respectful to show up an hour and a half late for a meeting when all of your neighbors you want to be respectful to showed up on time?
Absolutely not, sir.
Do you think it's respectful to not pay your taxes when the rest of us are paying our taxes?
I do pay my taxes.
That's not what we understand.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go back to the applicant now. We're close to the public on questioning the applicant. We're going to go back for the applicant's final argument. You have any other witnesses?
Oh, no, we're done with our direct testimony.
All right, now we'll open to the public for any general comments.
They have a water bottle. Water? Oh, yes.
Does anyone from the from the public have any general questions about this application or like to make a statement?
Yes, this is my name is Dr. Command, and I'm still on the road.
Yeah.
I guess this is still a question for yeah. I guess this is still a question for him. Did I hear him say he liked Lindenwold? Did he say you liked Lindenwold?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and you wanted to bring your business into our neighborhood to make it better?
That would be a
Or you thought so?
That would be the hope.
Well, before you bought the property, were you aware that there was several properties in Lindenwold on Egg Harbor Road that were for sale? One of them in particular with a building, a garage, and a yard, and trees. And it was on the top of the hill, and you can go to Franklin Avenue, or you can go to Gibbsboro Road. And did you even look at any of those properties on Egg Harbor Road?
Sure did.
And?
They weren't suitable. The one property that was for sale, they wanted to do a lease where they sold you fuel oil back to you. And I don't have any trucks that run on natural gas. And any of the other properties were so far out of reach, it was unaffordable.
Okay, then your trucks don't run on natural gas, they're diesel?
Correct.
Oh, so that's even louder?
No.
No, they're not louder?
No.
And so when they're coming to stop on Ashton Avenue and Bangor Avenue, they're not going to do that Jake braking?
No.
Jake braking or whatever, where they're going to go so that I have to hear them at my house?
No.
No? I'm not going to hear any of that?
No.
Yeah, all right. Okay, well, Mr. Williams, it was nice talking to you, but I really don't want you in our neighborhood. You might be a nice person, but I just don't think you're suited for us.
Thank you.
Seriously.
Making it up Ashton Avenue.
I live on Aston Avenue. Oh, no way. I grew up in that town. I went to school here when this was the school and not the Borough Hall. I've been in this community a long time, and we don't want those big trucks running up and down our road. And my road, they just had to fix the road because it caved in. I'm sorry. Barbara Sakil. Barbara Sakil. S-U-C-K-I-E-L. I live at 2206 Aston Ave. And I love the deers when I pull in my yard at night. They little eyes are looking at me. And that's right behind his property. And I don't want them here. And I don't want those big trucks in our area. Our kids ride the bikes and everything. I don't want all of that.
Okay, we're going to close the general comment portion of this meeting. Would you like to sum up your application?
Yeah, no, I'll keep it to the point. We really tried to show two things. We tried to show the site is unusual. It's by the fire building, it's by the police range, it's by a gravel pit. It's on the edge of the residential area in terms of zoning, and it's below grade and has been excavated extensively. So we tried to show it's particularly well suited for this use because you can kind of tuck his very limited contractor's yard into that hole, as Mr. Avila described it. The second thing we tried to show was that it would not have a substantial negative impact on the neighborhood. He's seasonal, he has a limited amount of equipment, he basically leaves in the morning and comes back later in the day. That's it. It's not a fire truck, it's not a gravel pit, it's not a paving plant, it's not a macadam plant. It's a very limited contractor's yard, and I think he fairly described it as basically a seasonal, almost like a landscape contractor. So when we put those two things together, I think we made our case on the use variance. We would ask you to approve it, subject to site plan review and the other conditions. Thank you.
Can I ask you, just state what role of planning is this application advancing?
I think it's
You're making an application for C2, is that correct?
No, it's a D1 variance, it's a use variance because it's not permitted in the zone. We tried to show it's particularly well suited and that it was an appropriate and efficient use of the property. And I think Mr. Allen made a point, very hard to put a permitted use there like a house because it's in a bulk.
Does the board have any other comments? Okay, the board will make a decision whether to approve, okay, or make a motion to deny this application. Okay.
So those things sum up for the board, what we've heard tonight, okay? And obviously this is an application tonight for use variance. They are not seeking site plan approval, they're just seeking a use variance for the property located at 1 Bangor Avenue, okay? And and so they're seeking a use variance, and there's really some criteria for doing that. And so basically they're talking about special reasons here. They're not doing a hardship type of thing. What they're talking about is just really that this property is is particularly suited for this use because it's a very unusual lot. It has characteristics that are the depth, the location, the fact that it's maybe on has three sites, 3 street frontages. So they're making that application with respect to that. The applicant's planner said that this R1 district does not necessarily preclude non-residential uses. And I think that's important to bring to the board because I'm going to read the actual non-residential uses that are allowed in this district. Besides, because it is a district for single-family detached houses. The one is public parks, government buildings, a public utility installation, that could be a cell tower, which involve no storage yards or commercial office space. That's one. The second one is public and parochial schools. The other one is daycare center, private schools, and related uses which are not operated as a business. Then the next is churches, synagogues, parish houses, convents, and related uses, provided that adequate provision is made for off-street parking. And then the last one is a home occupation. And so people who want to operate a business within their home, and there's a whole lot of restrictions. Those are the permitted uses. There is, the applicant's use is not a permitted use. They're indicating that it could be consistent with some of those uses. That's a board's determination whether this is in fact consistent with those uses. Also that they indicated that the best economic use of this property would be this particular use. Again, that's a call that the board is going to have to make. So these are so that's the positive stuff that they talked about. But then we go into the negative criteria, and again, the standard is that a use variance can be granted without substantial detriment to the surrounding area, okay? And without substantially impairing the zoning plan. So the board heard a lot of testimony tonight with regard to the negative criteria. In fact, I think the bulk of the testimony tonight was in reference to that. And so that is that's the law, and that's how the case was presented. Okay, so you have again use variance requires a supermajority, and that will require 5 votes here tonight for that.
Okay, at this time, the board has heard testimony. I'd like to open for a motion to approve or deny.
I'd like to make a motion to deny this.
Can I have a second?
Second. All right, we'll have a little discussion on that.
This was done without prejudice. It didn't meet the positive criteria. Okay, your negative testimony from the public. Does anyone from the board want to comment on the negative testimony from the public?
I think they commented enough.
Okay, just for the public, a motion was made
And a second.
and each member, if they vote yes, it will be to deny this application. Okay, it's not to approve it, it's to deny this application. Nancy, can I have a roll call?
Mr. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Vandenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Chloe Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Dawson?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Yes. Mr. Jermaine Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Menkowski?
Yes. Okay, the application is denied.
All right, good night.
Oh, that's wonderful, thank God. Oh. I got the drink that God would hold.
We're going to open the public for any comments before we adjourn.
No, but.
Motion for adjournment. All in favor?